This episode is produced by Pet Fox Studios. Pet Fox Studios is a recording studio in Morris, Minnesota. Visit petfoxstudios.com for more information. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not representative of the opinions and doctrine of Morris Community Church. We reserve the right to change our minds, and we reserve the right to be wrong. Welcome to the Roasted Christian Podcast. I'm Bobby.
And I'm John. Here at the Roasted Christian, we like our ideas like we like our coffee. Roasted.
All right, Roasted Christian listeners, it's season 2. I know you've been waiting for it. All three of you. You've been waiting.
Oh, don't forget about that other guy.
I'm not
there
listening
might be
this
four.
time.
There
so
might be four.
There
Oh,
might
the
be
one
four.
guy.
Yeah.
There's four.
The
What is that,
one guy.
Matt?
I'm not listening this time, so it might just be 2.
Now it's back down. Okay, bummer. Well, as you can hear, we have a special guest, Matthew Baker, our good friend and neighbor. Matthew Baker is here joining us today to talk about our fresh roasting topic, things we shouldn't be roasting, or maybe should be roasting. Should we be roasting things, or all things? Is there anything unroastable?
I don't know, but that's an idea that we could roast.
That in itself is something to roast, which is what we're going to be doing today.
Boom.
But first, our coffee. John?
This coffee is lukewarm and a little old, and I'm not sure where it came from.
That's just the way I like it.
Yeah, you like colder coffee, Matt. I can't. How? Why do you like it colder?
I mean,
do you not like it hot? Like,
yeah.
like slurpy hot? Like you gotta like slurp it in?
No, I'll burn myself.
But that's
But
like
that's
right
why you
before
slurp.
the burn. Yeah,
That's
that's
to prevent
why
the
you
burn.
slurp. You prevent the burning.
I drink my liquids.
You just gotta
I drink my liquids. Do you gulp it? Do you gulp the coffee like gulp, like 2 sips, yeah, like that's
and then
how
you
drink
never
coffee.
get burned.
Yeah, that's the perfect.
You also
coffee-
make
coffee
people
zone.
pull their hair out.
And it's also
if they're
inefficient.
listening.
Inefficient. We're not going for efficiency. We're going for
Pleasure.
experience, pleasure.
Hedonism. That's what it's all about. John Piper. That's a rabbit trail that we're not going to follow at all.
All right, so Matt, how do you like this coffee? This lukewarmness.
I think it's great.
In my defense, I made it at 4:30, and now it's 7:45.
Yeah, and also in your guys' defense, I'm going to be maybe out of it because it's game of the World Series right now, Cleveland and Chicago, and
First time since 1945. That's all I know.
of things, yeah.
Of
so
things.
Cleveland or Chicago hasn't been in the series since 45. Cleveland
Yeah.
hasn't won it since 48. Chicago hasn't won it since 1908.
Wow.
So needless to say, and my dad is from Cleveland, so we're rooting for the Indians. I think the Indians can win in 7 games. You've heard it here on the Roasted Christian Podcast. Probably 12th. Like I'm probably the 12th guy to say this, but
Well, and you won't be hearing this until a week after.
until a week
so
after. So, but trust us.
Maybe 1200th.
Yeah,
But
by then, yeah, after they've won a few games.
it's all good in the hood.
All right. Well, the coffee's lukewarm. We don't know what kind it is because you might have forgotten which one.
I
you
mean,
made.
it's probably Rwanda. I know it's not Kenya. I'm guessing it's somewhere in Africa.
We're guessing African coffee.
Yeah.
It tastes like an African coffee.
It actually
no
does.
idea.
Like I'm slightly getting to the point.
We should have.
I think
we need to have
I
a
could.
coffee country taste test.
There we go. Yeah, because the last test you had just was nasty.
Yeah, it was hotel coffee taste
it was
test.
the worst.
Yeah.
But I think I'm to the point where I could distinguish this from like the what's that Sumatra stuff, like
okay.
the thick, musty,
Sure.
earthy, whatever. This is a little cleaner.
Okay.
But yeah, I had to do a gigantic batch before the weather in Minnesota gets too crazy cold because I've got to roast outside. So now I'm just living off the dregs.
So, but you're doing an air popper to
Yeah.
roast them. How come you can't roast them inside?
Because Johanna's nose is sensitive and it is pretty
Because she's
stinky.
pregger.
Yeah.
Well,
But even
once baby
when
pops
she's
out,
quote normal,
yeah.
sorry about that, all women. It's still pretty stinky.
Yeah.
I think if you had maybe one of those like crazy awesome hood vents with an actual like exhaust,
Okay.
you could maybe do it in the kitchen.
Well, we can install that, my friend.
All right,
Just got to drill some holes in walls.
do it up.
There we go.
But yeah, it's kind of like burned popcorn. And I mean, it takes a long time because you're doing such small batches. So like a pound would take like an hour plus to do of like burning
And that's
popcorn
just like,
smell.
let's make the house smell bad. For
Right.
an hour.
Especially in the wintertime, like you can't open up many windows. It's just whatever. So the wintertime, I usually will get either like Bent and Dent old coffee, or I'll bite the bullet and get Caribou. And
What's your go-to, Matt?
This week I'm drinking Folgers.
Was that always your go-to? Like if you had a choice between Starbucks and Caribou, where are you going?
I have no preference.
But if you had to choose one, like you have to.
Whichever was closest.
Okay, whichever's closest.
the mysterious thing about Matt is he is undiscriminating in the widest definition of the word. You give him a cigar, it's
Iced
pretty
coffee
good.
or for you, lukewarm coffee?
Either's fine.
Oh, jeez.
I would probably prefer it warm, especially with the temperatures dropping.
Okay, so
There you go.
okay, all right, sounds good. All right, well, in addition to coffee, we also have some adult beverages here. We have a certified organic prairie vodka, not a sponsor, but made right here in
But could
Minnesota.
be.
It could be. We should reach out to them. This is a vodka that I was introduced by some friends of my in-laws in Red Wing, and it is a vodka made right here in Minnesota. It's really good.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna
I've
drink
like
some.
never actually had vodka before, and so I have nothing to compare it to, but it is tasty.
It kind of goes down like brandy in my mind a little bit.
I think for me it's a little sharper than that.
It's a little bit, but I'm
don't know
also
if that's
used to
the
the
right word.
extra smooth brandy, which we also have with us. Extra smooth
E&J?
brandy, E&J.
It's high quality.
This
stuff
is
right
a little bit of a segue into our next topic for next week, which is
Right.
alcohol.
there. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Might have to do a taste test for that too.
Yeah, you know what? And since we're probably recording in the middle of the day, seems like a great decision.
Yeah, why not?
All right, chit chat, season 1 in review.
What have we learned?
I've learned some people like us.
I've
learned some people don't.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Or is that our insecure perception of people just disagreeing with us? I'm trying to take this deep.
That's Matt, chime in at any time, but I definitely think people disagree, so that's good, and
For
I'm
sure.
totally cool, and we want disagreement.
Well, that was sort of not all, but part of our goal.
Yeah, is to talk about something and
Yeah.
get ideas out there, challenge ideas, and have people respond.
Yep.
But to be honest, some of our listening audience, I feel like, has been holding back response and joining into the community and talking about it. So we want discussion.
That does happen, when there's famous people in the public eye,
Yeah.
and like we're just totally
and you got
unapproachable
hair like
now.
I do. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
probably.
they just prefer to talk to themselves and not to us. But we really would like conversation.
Yeah, we
directly
feel-
with our listeners.
So we definitely feel this is part of our personal missions to get the body of Christ talking and coming to a better understanding of the knowledge of Christ. And the best way to do that's in community. So with the podcast, we're trying to create a community where ideas can be challenged, right? And we want discussion to happen. So don't sit back in a corner and judge us. Like, get out there and join the discussion. We want you hopping on Facebook, email us responses, and we'll put them up on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
Judge us
we
publicly.
Yeah, judge us publicly, not privately. The whole point is to get things out there. We don't refine our ideas if we don't sharpen each other, right? If we don't actually, you have to hit each other a little bit to sharpen each other. There's got to be contact. There's got to be interaction. You can't just hope that two knives and swords will just sit there and hopefully they'll sharpen each other.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
So I think one of the things that we sort of used as a disclaimer maybe for season 1 was that some of these topics that we're talking about we don't necessarily agree with.
Yep.
We're just airing them to get a conversation.
Sure.
I think the hiccup or the backlash that we've gotten is that we actually do agree with some of the controversial positions we've put out there.
Yeah.
That also shouldn't be a problem. So I think part of this is just to get, like, maybe we had in the back of our brains that either we function differently than most normal people, or like We just wanted to trade ideas, and we knew that some of ours are not the popular evangelical line. And so I've been looking forward to having different discussions. And you've actually had some really good, healthy ones,
yes,
too.
we've had some individuals come to us and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this because I disagree. And we have a sit down and talk over for a while. And then at the end, he even came, one of our friends came to the point in the discussion was like, you know what? I just disagree with you, but I love you, brother. And we hugged it out and we were fine. We were able to move on. I know Matt personally has said, I don't know about some of these things. And that's why you're here actually to talk about some of the, like, is there things that are roastable, not roastable? Can you make fun of things or not fun of certain things? Which is great. But he comes and talks to me. Like, he's like, hey, let's talk about this. That's the whole point.
But not on Facebook.
And we're not
but not on Facebook.
Not on Facebook.
But he at least talks to me. If he's got something, like, talk to us.
And we're not looking to convince or convert everybody who listens. I mean, I
Some
think
of them.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah,
honestly,
some of them.
yeah. Some
Like,
of them. If you don't have a viewpoint, have mine. Like,
but understand that, like, it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
And like it's okay for you to think that we're wrong and vice versa.
Yeah.
And
I definitely think there's non-negotiables in Christendom, but we're talking mostly about not the non-negotiables.
Yeah, the peripheral
Not
stuff.
that like, well, maybe Jesus rose from the dead. Like, we're not like, that's not our position. It's like, we're talking about booze. We're talking about a whole slew of things. We've talked about
Bob, that's a
yoga,
non-negotiable.
and we talked
Come
about
on.
all those. But just, I guess the whole point is we're putting ourselves out there, and we're totally okay with people thinking we're wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine. But we want you to express that and talk to us and join into the discussion, into the community. That's the whole point. Because then we may even say, like, you know what? Someone brought up this great point. I think we're wrong. I mean, we want to do that.
Yep.
So please get out there and chat with us on Facebook, on Twitter, email us, talk to us in person if you know us. We want to hear feedback.
Or get to know us if you don't.
And get to know us if you don't.
I mean, that could be an issue.
We had a friend last season who, a guy from nowhere in our circle, completely different state, contact us, and we even had him respond on the podcast. So we want a community.
The other thing is we are not the sole representatives or the sole doctrinal standpoint of the church that we attend. Like, we have our own ideas. There are certain things that we maybe will, I don't know what the word is, submit to, like, the greater leadership for doctrine, and there's some stuff that it's fine to disagree and it's fine, like, to just talk about and whatever. And this is not a church podcast.
Yeah, this is not an officially sanctioned church podcast.
Right.
We are members of the same church, but honestly, too, I mean, I'm probably those in our church, I'm going to be the wackiest elder you'll probably have in your whole life. I have crazy ideas, and I hope that's okay because I want to be in discussion with you. You've probably heard me preach before and be like, yeah, but he's got like maybe a screw loose or two. But that's okay. I want discussion. I want community. So that's it for Chit Chat. What do you think? Did we cover it enough?
Well,
sacred cows are going to moo, as one of our friends has said. And so when we slay them, we should expect to hear some noise. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't, like, moo in a corner.
Don't moo in your closet.
Don't moo in your closet. Come moo with us.
Unless it's to Jesus.
# come moo with us.
I could see a T-shirt with that.
Come
actually.
moo with us?
Yeah.
The roasted Christian?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Do we have anything else?
I mean, I was going to bring up the Vikings, but they're just depressing.
Ooh, there's some good talk about possibly Teddy Bridgewater will never come back to the NFL.
Is that good talk?
Good as in reputable doctors and sources, not as in like that's a good thing.
Well, I got to say I like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Bradford has filled his shoes admirably.
Yes.
The
offensive line were who we thought they were after this last week against the Eagles. They were pretty bad.
They were asleep. It's I
thought they were hungover. Like, that's what I told Whitney right away. I said Sam Bradford looks like he's hungover, and then the left tackle just got like, I don't know my lefts versus my rights, and
Yeah, it was pretty
didn't look
bad.
so good. But
Anyway, yeah, I guess I'll let the professionals decide whether or not we keep Bridgewater or if Bridgewater does something else. Or I would be sad to see
it
him
could
go,
be very
but-
possible he's not coming back from this injury. This knee injury is the worst knee injury you can have.
Sure.
And it's one of those, like, if this thing moves again, you can lose your leg type of injury.
Yikes.
And
Ouch.
yeah, you don't. The risk factor is just so incredibly high. You may not want to risk that. So I feel for the kid. I mean,
Yeah.
he had lots of millions of dollars still out there, so he's going to try his darndest to come back. I know that for sure, but I hope and pray he does. But that gives us to another point of praying for our sports teams.
Oh, snap.
And when you say that, are you actually going to pray for him?
Yeah. Pray right now. Do you want me to pray? You dare me to pray right now, Matt? Because I'll pray right now for Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't think prayer is a thing to be joked about.
Excellent segue. Props.
Oh, we just high-fived. That was really good. Okay. Fantastic segue into the fresh roast.
So,
All right.
Matt,
Yes, John.
are there things that you can never roast? Or by that we mean poke fun at, satirize.
So would you go ahead and define roast first, so we're more specific
Right.
about
I'm
the same thing?
expanding
Yeah.
that word. Like, basically scrutinize, make fun of.
Is criticize fall in that
Yeah, maybe
Definition 3 under Merriam-Webster.
for roasting?
of roast.
Did you look it up?
Well, I've got it.
What do you got?
I
What
got
does
it
it
in
say?
front of me.
What does it say?
Well, the first
Wait,
couple.
It
Yeah,
really
he has the
actually is?
definition. He's making an
All
S like
right.
crawl for it.
Well, he is the scholar.
I
mean,
want them to
give him
That's true.
credit.
think about things a little bit here and there.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, in my mind,
lay it on us.
there's a criticizing element, a challenging element, but also there's the flavor of
I like the idea of a
entertainment and fun.
challenge.
No, the primary definition involves flavor, mostly meat.
Meat.
A roast is a piece of meat suitable for cooking.
Ooh, should that
Maybe
is
we
that
should
what
go
we're going to
that
be calling our topics? Is a suitable piece of meat?
Nice. So maybe in the wintertime when I can't roast coffee, we can roast meat.
It's a good call. Ooh. The second definition is a gathering at which food is roasted before an open fire or on hot ashes or sand. It's also good.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
The third definition is an act or process of roasting, specifically severe banter or criticism.
Okay.
And the-
What now? Bantering, does that involve a joking element?
So this is more severe, I think. Definition 4 is
Playful and
more
friendly exchange
where
of
I think
teasing remarks
you
is
tend to
banter.
get there. So
I mean, we're kind of that.
That's kind of us.
you put the adjective severe in front of it.
Severe,
It,
playful,
it gets,
and friendly
that
exchange.
gets a little,
We do.
little harder.
Yeah.
Definition 4 is a banquet honoring a person as a celebrity who is subjected to humorous tongue-in-cheek ridicule by friends.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that is probably more where I would say you guys shoot for.
And some, definitely, there are some podcasts that we go that route, and I think there are some that go definitely more
Yeah.
straight critique.
All right. When you guys talk about Florida, for example,
Oh yeah,
you tend to get
yeah.
pretty severe
Well,
and critical.
It totally
You
deserves.
talk
it.
about movies. Bobby
mean-
has only been critical.
Yeah,
Come on, Bob.
but I got a review today. I ain't so critical.
All right. Stay tuned.
Okay, go.
Well, and
Man,
finally,
we are
when you
on
talk about
fire
your
with the segues
Yeah, it's
or the sneak peeks, or continue, Matt.
interrupting is what it is.
The interruptions are just on fire.
With guests, you've mostly roasted them with degrees of humor and good nature. You've slipped a little severe banter and criticism in at times, but it's been
now the question is
pretty
that
good.
wrong?
Right.
That's one
Which
question.
we're getting
Not the
to.
question. But
That is
there's-
one of the
I
questions.
feel like
Is
Matt
that
is
wrong?
setting up the foundation to then say,
You
and
guys
you're wrong
suck."
because.
Yeah, and you're wrong because. All right, keep going.
Well, that's as far as I had.
Oh, that's your definitions. Okay. So, based on those definitions of roasting, Matthew, are there things in your opinion that are unroastable?
Yes and no. It kind of depends on what the definition is. Like, I would not roast vegetables. It's just not a good call.
Yeah.
On the
why would you
grill?
roast them on the grill?
A little asparagus, maybe, but with the steak.
What about corn? You ever had corn off the grill?
Only with meat.
Yeah, but it's still corn off the grill.
It's kind of like a side.
So we can stick Florida in there as long as we have something more substantial to roast.
It says
is really what
meat
you're saying.
suitable for roasting. It's just not worth it, guys.
I'm a little lost in the metaphor, but it's all good.
Well, that's why I'm criticizing by saying what you don't eat corn off the grill.
Okay, so
it's totally that in itself is worth roasting. Wait a
Yeah.
second, corn.
right.
That's completely acceptable.
Okay, go.
So in terms of topics like subjects, people, thought processes, I'd say yes and no. Some things are definitely roastable. Some things are not roastable, to my opinion.
Okay.
And where'd I go here? Some things are just inappropriate for it entirely.
Criticizing?
For some of the definitions.
Okay.
So some things that are not good subjects for joking about would be rape, murder, death, cancer, babies dying, things like that.
Sure.
People are very sensitive.
Yeah.
You could, but it's generally considered impolite humor, even within most comedic circles, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I dive more into the probably extreme comedic circles.
Right.
And in their realms, right, there is nothing that is unjokeable.
Right.
Right? Because to their mind, they would say, or in their opinion, that finding the humor in any element can also help bring healing and certain elements. So, like, for example, there's a comedian who's on SNL right now. His dad was a firefighter who died when one of the towers collapsed in 9/11. He jokes about that, and the other comedians joke about that when he does celebrity roasts.
Oh man.
He roasted Justin Bieber by saying, he's like, I've met your dad, Justin Bieber, and just to remind you, my dad died in 9/11, and I'm so after meeting your dad or something like that, like I would never want your dad to have like replaced my dad. Like, your dad is just that bad. I'm glad my dad's dead. Like, he went that far, and you're like,
ouch.
Whoa.
like, that is just like crazy.
Yeah.
But he's like, there's a therapeutic element for him, and hearing other top comedians joke about that by coming up with the zinger.
Right.
But I can't personally, like, I can't go there, like, because.
So does it come down to,
But it's not my
like
art, though.
personality or temperament or something, like where you draw the line? Because I know there are things
Maybe
that,
goal
like,
and forum. Like, their
man,
forum
yeah.
is like a comedic roast or a stand-up routine.
so like finding your audience maybe.
You got to know your audience, because
Sure.
there are lots of comedians who, like you said, talk about rape, and people will walk out the door, right? But over time, there have been more rape jokes, and the general populace has, I would say, probably maybe been more desensitized to it.
For sure.
Does that make it a good or not? My opinion, no.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm never in that forum. In this forum, I don't think it's ever. There's zero appropriateness ever for criticizing,
All right. So
because we're not roasting it as a joke. I don't know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Matt,
my
what are
opinion,
are there things, are there dangers to people who take roasts too far or take it to the wrong place in any kind of setting, this setting or like on stage or whatever? But I mean, I think in general, we're talking spiritual terms. Do you think there are dangers to that?
I think probably some of the biggest dangers, if there are, would be relational.
Okay.
I think as Christians, it's very important to be careful not to burn bridges that don't need to be burned.
Yeah.
We don't need to avoid offense at all cost. Christ offended people.
Yeah.
The truth offends people, but we do need to speak the truth in love. And sometimes things are jokes and funny, but they're not even truth, and they don't have any love in them at all. Sure. So if it's not true and it's not love, or a combination,
could I make a fat
or
joke
a
about you?
combination,
Because it's
I
not
was
true.
just trying to figure out
Well,
something about
that
like,
is true, but would it be love? So a lot of it comes also down to the relationship.
Yeah.
Like, I can make jokes with you guys that I would not make with most of the people at work.
Yeah.
I
so it's
can
more
make
about
jokes with my-
sensitivity, maybe.
It comes down to relationship. I
Yeah.
think it comes down
Knowing
to
your audience is kind of like how he's phrased it.
yeah, knowing your audience. I can make jokes with my wife that I would not make with any other woman or things like that.
Yep.
Oh man, the innuendos in
Oh,
a
yeah.
marriage relationship just skyrocket.
Yeah, and the language you guys come up with that you use for humor that no
Yep.
one else gets. Yeah,
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
it's lovely.
Right. So we have scriptures that say avoid unclean speech, avoid crude joking, which you look it up, it's all about double entendre type stuff. There's stuff that is acceptable in very limited circles,
Yeah,
like within a marriage.
yeah.
So objectively, I don't know if we can get there or not, but I feel like if you take the relational aspect, you wind up a little bit in the subjective realm. Certain things are appropriate for certain people, case by case, whatever.
Right.
Are there objectively certain things it's like, no matter who you are, no matter what company you're with, we do not roast or make fun of or whatever these things?
Well, it kind of depends again on the definition of what you're roasting. If you're severely criticizing or severe banter is focusing on God or people, it can be God especially. I don't think is a good subject matter for severe criticism.
Well, that's too broad, though. I think how
Is
you're
it?
saying
All
that
right.
is too broad.
I've got an example.
Okay,
Maybe,
give us an
sort of.
example.
Okay, so we knew some people who thought it was the hilariousest thing ever
I don't like that word.
to make fun of like religious charismatic phrases.
Yes.
Like
Okay.
more Lord and like just stuff about Holy Spirit. Like
Yeah,
it
How we
cracked
use
them
how we
up.
use Father God as a
Yeah.
replacement for and prayers.
So I could definitely see where there are certain people who would just like that's too far for them. But is that an objective line that's being crossed, or is that like even though it is spiritual and it is about our relationship with the Father, like is that still okay? I mean, like, is
Yeah.
God good with us joking about religious matters?
Relationship and heart. Are you
right.
criticizing somebody as you do that? Are you laughing about? I don't know that he does it particularly, but say your father, Patrick Franey, says Lord every 5 seconds in a prayer because he's forgetting something.
Right.
And
It's a gap
we
filler.
sit around
So
making
that's-
fun of him.
yeah.
Is
So
that
can we do that? Okay, so let's take that subject
This
because
is a weirdly
like
vague thing
But
to like try to
there are
nail
many
down.
people who will say like Father or Lord or Jesus as every other word in a prayer. Can I criticize that? I think I can.
I think so too.
criticize or
What's interesting
mention as something that they do a little too much?
But is that not a criticism?
Critiquing versus criticism.
What's the
well,
difference?
but
If you're
it's the same
critiquing
word.
something, no.
What's the okay? Tell me
Same
what the
root.
difference
If you're
between
critiquing something, it's constructive criticism. You're seeking to better. You're seeking to improve.
criticism on itself without the
Criticism.
adjective of constructive can never be constructive.
Critiquing versus criticism. Criticism is negative.
Yeah,
it tears down.
Criticism is the expression of disapproval.
Okay. Gosh, I don't think of it that way. When
Yeah,
I think
me
of the
neither.
word, when I think of the word
Bobby
criticism,
thinks of
it's just an
criticism as good.
objective, an objective telling of what can
That's
be
because
right or
Bobby
wrong.
is a fan of criticism.
Because I feel like when you say critique, like in my mind, critique and criticism are interchangeable. Because if I'm criticizing an individual's,
I don't mean to
like
run you
batting
down, Bob,
stance or
but it would
something
be
like
good if you learned the definitions
yeah,
of
probably
the words.
that's probably true.
This is critiquing.
That's that's
Yeah,
a
come on,
criticism.
Bob.
Now
because
it's-
I don't
now
know
it's turning
the
into a
definition,
roast.
And that's okay. So criticism is negative. Critique is positive.
Critique is an assessment or evaluation of something.
Okay.
So it can have negative elements.
Certainly.
A critique can be a criticism.
Okay. So
I don't know.
disapproval.
We're going weird places.
Okay. Now, okay. So was disapproval? That was the word you used in the definition
Yep,
of
that was criticism.
criticism. Okay, I'm going to stick with it. Can I criticize how a person prays?
Are you doing it in love?
Sure.
Then I would say you can if you're speaking the truth and
think
you're doing
Jesus
it in
did.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be it in love.
Yeah. Don't be like those idiots
Can you
who pray
can you,
out loud
Can you
in
have
the
a
street.
fun, entertaining twist to something in love?
Can you be tongue in cheek and
Can you be tongue in
satirical?
cheek,
Well-
but still have the heart of love in your criticism?
I don't do Hebrew at all. I don't do Greek at all. But my understanding is that the Bible has a ton of humorous twists within Hebrew that Jesus said, word plays that we don't get because it's been translated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're dumb Americans.
Yep, that's true.
Hey, enough with the criticism.
No, I think that's good. So, but we're a concrete example of in charismatic Christendom, you all know what we're talking about. The person who says Father, Lord, or Jesus every other word in a prayer. Can we? Yeah, I think there can be a criticism and almost. So that I guess we're still getting to the question of where can even a criticism in love. Is there a thing that you can't criticize in love? Is there anything you can? Like God's plan?
Right.
Like objectively?
Like, I think objectively we
need to
can't
explain
make
yourself better on that
fun
one.
of God or his nature, maybe? I just threw that out there. What do you think?
Right. I would agree with that. It's a little vague, but I would agree with that.
But what about the jokes about like Jesus is playing around a golf and he
Is that making fun of God's
Right.
nature?
and he
Well,
hits a
yeah.
tree and the bird grabs the ball and it drops and he's like, "Come on, man!" He's like, "Nice shot, Dad," or something like that. You know those kind of jokes, and that's kind of playing off of his omniscience and
Right.
omnipotence. It's taking his omnipotence and finding a funny side that
Right.
could be it.
So,
But that's not a
Is
criticism.
it roast? Is it?
Yeah,
is it?
it's not
Is it,
roasting.
is
Yeah.
it criticism? Is it severe banter? Is it ridicule by a friend? It's not ridicule. It's not
Yeah,
banter. It's not criticism.
It's just fun.
Right.
It's funny.
It's just
Yeah.
levity, which there is. I think some people do react negatively to levity or humor in religious situations, even when that humor is positive.
Yeah. All right.
That was a giant gap of nothingness.
I want him to take a picture.
Okay.
Pause.
We can pause after, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Reverence and awe, respect, avoiding offense. Those are three things.
Sure. Now, those are three topics that I listed quickly while
Yeah.
at work.
Yeah.
Don't tell my boss.
Yeah.
I talked to Bobby briefly on non-work related stuff at work.
Come
Oh
on,
my
Matt.
goodness.
Yep.
Deserves criticism.
Slipping.
All right. So are we coming to the point of criticism while done in love? There's just about nothing you can't do. You can't criticize in love. There's just about no topic that you can't criticize in love regarding basically individuals' ideas and behaviors.
Yes. Setting is still obviously huge. I mean, this is stuff that you guys don't disagree with on a whole, I would say.
Right.
You
I
don't
don't know that we
depends on
even
the-
do it that much. Like, do we criticize in
Well,
love?
no. But we're not even talking about what you guys have done and saying you guys have missed the boat here.
Right.
There,
Yeah.
there probably have been a couple instances. But mostly the question is there anything not roastable? And probably there are some things that are not good subject matters for roasting, and reasonably so. You guys have not tried to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but like maybe I don't know. Let's keep into the framework of Christianity.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Like, is there
and
anything
in
within
that vein-
Christianity's response to any other like worldly topic that we can't criticize?
Well,
Okay.
you guys brought Bibles because you're holier than I am.
Yeah,
That was an example
You have
of
the internet right there.
levity.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
See, that was another example.
Okay, so
people.
this is a concept I just thought of. It's not in our notes. Mockery.
You guys didn't share your notes with me.
Mockery. Yes, this is
So
getting into-
I feel like that's a line that's fine and sometimes blurry
yeah.
and is often crossed. And the Bible has lots to say about mockery. So is that a blanket term for everything we do? Is that a line not to cross, and have we crossed it? The definition is teasing and contemptuous language or behavior directed at a particular person or thing. Synonyms are ridicule, derision, contempt, scorn, teasing, taunting, sarcasm, all these kind of things.
Scoffing.
So, I mean, is that something? I feel like maybe we've gone there a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that something that's just outright bad, no matter who you do it to or what you talk about? Is that something that is okay based on, I don't know. Maybe it's a cop-out to call it a cultural thing, but maybe it is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It might be a cultural thing, but that doesn't mean it's okay.
All right, yeah,
Well-
that's fair. Just like our speech is not necessarily okay, even if it's a cultural thing. Like,
Correct.
if we have, yeah. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
If you pronounce it flag instead of flag, yes. So, in my notes, just sum that up a little bit. There's no topic that I know of that's not acceptable as a subject of honest discourse given the right setting and participants.
okay.
If that sums it up at all.
I totally missed that.
There is no topic that I know of that is not acceptable as a subject of honest discourse given the right setting and participants.
So
Okay.
then
You can talk
based-
about things.
based on-
Yeah.
so
You
now
can
talking
do
about
constructive
podcasts.
criticism.
Now talking about a podcast though, we're
Right.
opening it up to the public to listen to.
Right.
I think that what you just said there was good because we're not in control of our audience. However, the point is to get to whoever is listening to it for honest thinking about the subject.
Right. But we are in control, or you guys are in control of the subject.
Yeah.
So you can
True.
do your best to limit it to subjects that are going to be the most acceptable to whomever your audience may be.
But is that our goal? So taking that more broad, like, we have the main audience who's listening right now would be the conservative Christian audience.
Sure.
Is there?
Unless you're in the audience and you're not conservative.
Yeah, unless you are. Like, I feel like there are things that need to be not necessarily mocked, but criticized.
Sometimes humor in maybe the form of mockery is a way to broach a subject that is not like a life or death thing, like that wants to be approached.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
But
know.
I don't know.
I'm spitballing.
Like,
I don't
okay,
know.
so I would say my family would say, or at least someone has said at one point, we are a family of mockers.
Right.
Someone has made that comment. When we do it and we do it well. The question, now that I think about it and have thought about it over the last number of years, is there ever really a good time to mock someone? I don't know if there is, because
I'm going to go with no.
yeah, teasing. Why would it ever be good to tease a person?
I mean,
I think that's
To
a little
laugh.
different things, though. They may.
I don't know.
They may
But
be
no,
synonyms of
maybe-
sorts, but
maybe
mockery and
Depending on
teasing
the
can be
person,
very
though,
different.
Like, I can tease Matt in certain subjects, and he can laugh and know
I
my
laugh.
heart and relationship with him.
And I can laugh at Bob all the time.
Yeah, we can tease each other, and there's still be room because of our relationship status.
Exactly.
We can handle the teasing of it because we know it's in fun. We know it's more jesting, but then is that mockery now even more?
I don't
If
know.
teasing is not negative,
Right.
is it mockery anymore?
So, I mean, does something
Am I getting
become
splitting hairs?
mockery based on the way that someone takes it?
I think a lot of
I
it
think it's a hard issue from
It's
the
a hard-
person who it
Receives it.
issues from.
Yeah.
issues from, yes.
Yeah.
People can misinterpret good-natured
Right.
Something as
ribbing
mockery, yeah.
and have a sensitive day
Yeah.
and take it very poorly.
Yeah, it's a good way to screw
Have
up
you
a
guys
lot of
ever done this with your
relationships
wives?
unintentionally. No, never.
Now let's talk about lying.
Yeah, I want to throw this out there. I did a quick Google search for mockery in the Bible, and the top result was Proverbs 17:5, who says, "Whoever mocks the poor insults his maker."
Okay.
Which I was
Okay.
like, wow.
That-
But that's
So
yeah.
I would say that is an
Oh.
objective line.
Yeah.
Like, you do not mock the poor. There actually
Well,
really
yeah.
isn't
How about we
anything else.
segue
Yeah.
into one of my topics, respect.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we can roast people if we're doing it in love. If you're doing friendly banter, if you are doing definition 4 was tongue-in-cheek ridicule by friends.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it. I can make fun of Bobby.
Yeah, that
You can't stop
that
me.
delves into the line of
But-
mockery with friends.
Right.
But every human, regardless of their inane behaviors, habits, and teachings, is created in the image of God. We can disagree with them, We can argue against their stance on issues. We can oppose them to their faces. However, we must remain in love.
Yeah.
Respect, reverence for that which was created in God's own image.
Mm-hmm.
Respect for that which was created by God. Respect for the maker.
Mm-hmm.
It all ties together. So, for example, I disagree very strongly with several politicians.
Yeah.
However, whether they be candidates or sitting presidents, there is a lot of respect that still needs to be spoken of, not just for positions, but because they're people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really easy one to cross because people lose their humanity by their stance, by everybody else running them down. And you don't have to agree with someone to treat them with respect.
Yes, true.
Yeah, there's a verse, I think, in 2 Peter or something, where he admonishes his readers to honor the emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And we went through that in our Bible study a while back and looked at the fact that, like, that can't actually take place on a one-on-one relationship level because they don't have relationship with the emperor. So really the respect and the honor is coming, like, in how we talk about that person to other people.
Yeah.
Right. And
which
that's
is really convicting.
Mm-hmm.
right. And that's both respect for position, which is God ordained, that there be leaders in governments, and also as the human aspect is, regardless of whether we see them or not, or know them or not, the emperor, the president, the politicians, they're all still people. And I don't expect that anybody like that is probably listening to this podcast, but you never know.
Yeah.
And if you bump into them, if you have a chance to relate to them, do you want them to think that you've been mocking them, slandering them?
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, maybe if they deserved it. I'm just kidding.
so does putting "just kidding" on the end of a sentence make it all better?
No, but the entire sentence was sarcasm. So I wanted to go in a slightly different track and look at, rather than the relational element, the religious element, things on tradition or I guess just religion in general. There are things that I think, which maybe it would go back to relationship, but just looking at, like, the idea of Sunday morning or the Sabbath, or communion or Lent or any of these kind of things. Is it okay to make fun of or to mock in and of themselves? So we're not talking about relationship here, but are there things that are inherently we should just have reverence for outside of the person of Jesus?
I don't know. Like, I can feel like I can make fun of communion.
Yeah. I don't know.
Especially, like, let's say I go visit a church and it's just done a really crazy way. Now, to them, maybe it's like there's a reason and they've gone through, like they figured out, like, this is the best expression for them or whatever. But I feel like I can still, in love, criticize them, being like, this is just out of left field, people. You know, like, like
what is
I feel
this,
like,
kumbaya?
Yeah.
But that's different than making fun of. You just said you could make fun of them, and then you said you could say this is out of left field, people. That's not making fun of. That's saying, hey, guys,
there's not
is
a
different.
Midwestern person on the planet that would not say that that's not actually feels like I'm making fun of them. It feels like it.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
But is it?
No.
Again,
objectively, it's
we're
not,
talking about the heart issue
that's-
of the speaker.
That's a 2-hour conversation, sit down over a meal for them to realize that I'm not actually making fun of them.
Right.
Okay, and hopefully you're having this discussion
But-
in a setting where you're ready for that, not just where you're
Yeah.
in there walking out the door saying, you guys are wackadoodle.
Right.
Well, yeah.
But I mean,
I
what
wanna-
I'm talking about is, like, okay, so there are people who are like, you can never, like, throw your Bible on the floor because it's like, it's the word of God. You treat it well, whatever. There are some people who are like, dude, it's like, it's paper and ink, and it's been translated 100 million times, like, whatever. Are there things that, regardless of the people involved, like, we just should not go there?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
Can you?
That, I mean, I was kind of hoping you would disagree, but if you had,
Yeah.
I would have said that Jesus seemed to take a lot of steps against, like the religious tradition.
Yeah.
And just the other day, our group was talking about communion in that Jesus used very everyday elements to create something extraordinary. Wine and bread were available to everyone all the time, everywhere. Like, I mean, water wasn't even really a thing. So to take like the basest ingredients of a meal and say like, this is actually the most special, and basically just turn things on its head.
Yeah.
I think is indicative of the fact that it is more like we talked about relationship than it is inherent.
Can you think of
objects.
anything, Matt, that would be in religion specifically
Well, I know there's certainly
that we can't make
different
fun of?
churches, different denominations where the building, the sanctuary, is something where you have to act with decorum, where you don't go and play space games.
Sure.
This sounds really specific, Matt. Tell us more.
Where would you get this idea?
And I don't know that I entirely disagree with some of their thoughts on it. It's treating with reverence a sanctuary that is set aside for the worship of God.
Yeah.
Is that
It's-
not
it's-
in some small harmless degree idolatry?
Well, now you're getting
Was
into the
having-
criticism. So you're
was
already,
having the
like,
temple
naturally
idolatry?
doing it.
Yeah.
Was having the temple idolatry? Was having the tabernacle tent that they treated with respect idolatry?
Well, I mean,
was having the Ark of the Covenant that if you touched you might drop dead?
It's
idolatry?
a giant can of worms, but it seems like Jesus kind of showed up and was like, "Yeah, none of that is important. I'm a person. Like
How about selling stuff in the temple?
you are the temple. There is no more high priest. Like I don't know. Like I think there's both for sure, and that's
Right.
why I brought up the question. Is that it seems like there's some kind of balance to be struck. Like, and you see a lot of people going one way or the other. There's either there's nothing sacred, or like you just don't touch what's sacred, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, if we can never critique, maybe critique's the better word. If we can never critique and challenge the ideas of religion and tradition, then we wind up with the Catholic, like what the Catholic Church had before the Reformation.
Right.
yeah,
We wind up with that all over again, and I don't think we want that.
nope, not really.
But we also don't want flippant,
Right.
individuals who have no grounding in tradition, in things that need reverence, things that need to be respected, because then there's nothing to build upon for the individual as far as
Sure.
maybe even the depths of things that you can experience in God and experience in community and things like that. If you're constantly going from church to church and you're criticizing church to church and you're jumping from church to church and you're just trying all these different things and you're just finding something wrong with everything, like you said, there's a balance.
Yep. Well, have we roasted what we can roast and what we can't?
You got anything else, Matt? Any other
The
notes?
last thing I had on here was offense.
Offense.
No.
Like a white picket fence?
well, kind of.
Okay.
Kind of.
Is it brown?
I don't like to paint fences, so I go with
So natural.
dog-eared, green-treated,
There we go.
6-foot-tall picket fence.
All right.
It's the way to go.
Okay. Tell us
So-
more.
One of the dangers of inappropriate roasting is offense. When people are
Is it
roasted,
only a danger of inappropriate roasting?
no, not at all.
Okay.
But it is a reason to avoid inappropriate roasting, if for no other reason than that.
Should that guide what we roast?
It should cause you to.
We should consider
The thing that
It should
Fair
cause
but you're
consideration.
classifying it as inappropriate roasting. So, in and of itself, since it's inappropriate and not appropriate,
Right.
you should probably never be doing it, regardless of not if it offends anybody,
Right.
because it's inappropriate.
Right, but having
Very good, Bob. You've been listening.
having offense as the barometer or the arbiter of whether or not we go there, I don't think is right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Do you think it's right?
Okay. Let me keep going.
All right.
When things or people are roasted without sufficient care, we are at risk of causing unnecessary offense. Just to be clear, people need to guard their own hearts and minds against offense when they hear something they disagree with or find distasteful.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's your
Also,
fault.
Yeah,
we
jeez.
are not, I said this earlier, we are not called to avoid everything that can cause offense. Christianity itself is extremely offensive to many people and Christ himself offended many people. Truth can offend people. You're going to offend people if you're doing Christianity right.
Right.
However, if we treat things with casual disregard when we know that these things are important to other people, and it is not necessary to do so for the sake of love and truth, we can really easily cause offense that is avoidable and is a real stumbling block to people.
Word up.
Yeah.
So, say you are living in a Muslim community. You shaking, Bob?
No, I'm tapping my foot.
Okay.
I'm always
You're kind of
moving my
twitching a
foot.
little bit.
I'm thinking.
Your
He's
nose
quivering
your
with
nose
rage.
his nose is moving.
He's a
this?
small dude. Like one small tremor will just like
a
throw
little-
the whole
little
thing.
dog
off.
wagging its tail.
It's fine.
So, say you're living in a Muslim community.
Okay.
You have people over to eat. Are you going to serve pork?
Probably not.
Probably not. Why? Is it wrong to eat pork? No. Is it a stumbling block to people who, at this point, may not be eating pork? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but there could
so-
come a time
right.
where you serve pork as a joke.
You better know him pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
that goes without saying. But the
Right.
idea is not that you never serve pork. You know what I mean? Like there's a.
So, we're
I guess we're talking all.
I
about
like
the
to get
same
it into
thing.
pushing issues
Okay.
a little bit on that. So, we have freedoms as Christians with a lot of things, with things we eat and drink, with things we say. We might disagree on certain lines where those fall, but I don't drink in front of my grandma because it's offensive to her. I don't smoke cigars in front of my mama. And some things I try to avoid just altogether because they could be offensive to others, and that's enough.
Question.
Yeah.
So when does abstaining in front of other people in order to prevent offense turn into I'm leading a double life and I can't show anybody anything because I'm afraid of like confrontation or something like that? Is
My
that
mom
a
knows I've
personality
smoked
thing?
cigars,
Sure.
and I don't think she holds it too much against me.
Well,
She hates you a little bit, John, but
Well,
you know,
I mean, okay.
my mom doesn't hate anybody. Just get that clear.
Makes me think of the Bieber song,
And-
and I wish I didn't think of the Bieber song.
I'm
My
gonna-
mama
I'm going to think less of you now.
likes
that you're
everyone, and
bringing up a Bieber song.
she doesn't like
Stop
you.
with the lyrics. I don't
Okay.
wanna hear them.
Our producers are bobbing, or one of them.
So
That could be our intro theme.
No, God, no. No. Keep going.
that was pretty well the end of my notes.
All right.
All right, so I follow up on that one.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think there is a time and place to present some potentially offensive things that are not what we might call in our parlance bullet theology, such as cigars or alcohol or whatever, in a way that is still respectful, not like, you know what, if you don't like it, you can leave kind of thing. But I have a different lifestyle than you. I am still a Christian, just like you, or what have you. But once you have related on a person-to-person level, there should be room both ways to live our lives how we want. Like, I guess what I'm getting at is like, I don't like the idea of perpetual eggshells and perpetual like paranoia for offense. Like,
Sure.
if I listen to metal and I know that somebody doesn't like it, I might 90% of the time listen to something else when they're around, and then a couple songs be like, dude, this is a really cool song. I know you don't like it, but check it out. And if they're offended, then I'll say, okay, I'm not going to play any more metal for you.
You promise?
Well, it might be revisited at a later date. But my point is, like, I shudder to think of like not being able to present my differences, if that makes sense, to other people.
Sure.
I don't know. Is that just weird? I mean,
I
should
don't
I
think
just conform like
No,
completely to what other people?
My mama don't hold with smoking cigars.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
My mom knows I smoke cigars occasionally.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, Mom, for bringing you into this. Probably she's not listening.
She's probably not listening anyway.
And she's okay with that. She's never had issue with me as far as I'm aware about it.
Sure.
But it's not necessary to smoke in front of her.
Right.
If it's easily avoided. And I'm not talking about leading a double life and hiding things, intentionally hiding things.
Well, because it might go there.
Like, I think that John has a point of like, it can very, very, very easily be like, okay, today I'm going to go see these 3 people. I got to make sure I don't do A, B, and C and present a different front because I'm naturally going to the bar to go watch the World Series game.
Right.
And just in case if there's anybody there, I can't have a beer and I can't be smoking a cigar.
Or people saying I probably shouldn't even be there because they serve alcohol and I can't be associated with that kind of thing. I mean, there's arguments for both sides, but me personally, I don't like the secretive double life. Like the only time I drink is in a closet and nobody knows about it. It's like,
but Matt's also right.
That's probably saying you got a problem.
Yeah, probably.
But there's also that's the hard part of like knowing the setting, knowing the people.
Right.
Like
true.
You have vegan friends. You go over for supper. You probably don't bring a roast.
But vice versa.
If they come to my house, they should know.
Yeah, who bring their own food if they have restricted
diets. There's also a
diets.
setting too. Like if you come over to my house,
are you going to serve the main dish meat?
I might be more concerned about what I give them as options.
Okay,
but if I want meat, I'm going to have meat.
Especially if they're not the only one coming. Like if you're having 12 people over and there's one person who's a vegan, might still have meat.
I'm not saying not have
catering an event and you forget to have a gluten-free option. Is a person who comes who can only have gluten-free, should they be offended?
No. Will they be? Maybe.
No, that's the critique. That's what we roasting.
Right, yeah.
We're trying to make objective line that we want people to criticize and say whether we're right or wrong.
All listeners, you shall not be offended.
No, you should not be offended by that. You should be bummed.
In general.
And bummed. Have your little gluten-free pouch of powder mix drink that you can make, I don't know, on the go, because that's a hard thing lifestyle to always be accommodating for in every setting. I don't know. Gosh, man, it's all an example. It's all got to be case by case, doesn't it?
Case by case for much. I think we've sufficiently roasted it, and time it's percolated quite a bit. So,
any final words, Matthew Baker, before we
relationship and heart.
Relationship and heart.
Those are good final words.
Relationship, heart, and setting. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on, man. Because maybe we don't always. Here's okay. Really quickly, do I need to give a disclaimer every time I'm talking on this podcast? Of course, there's this. Of course, this is part of my backdrop of having to give the full discourse of the other side of here are the elements at core I believe every time. Do I need to give a full theological statement before I make a critique of something?
If you were perfect, you would.
Because I don't feel like
I can. If people liked you long enough to listen that long, they would.
So here's my disclaimer, people. There are things I believe that I will not be saying as the core elements to a position that I'm taking as a backdrop.
Yep.
Some things are just going to be assumed on my part. And if you have questions well, don't you believe this or this? Ask that question and I will answer it.
Yep. And that's even been brought up with sermons.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you talk about a topic, everybody feels like it has to be couched in 100 million other doctrinal things.
If I talk about service, but I don't talk about grace.
Right.
Then you're just you're the world's worst pastor because you were just talking about service for that Sunday and doing works of.
But there comes a time when you actually have to talk about something. Yeah. So you run the risk of actually saying something and it's not couched and everything else.
Yeah.
So you might be called out for it, but you still gotta.
And if you get offended by that, hit the road, Jack.
Yep. All right. Roasted reviews.
Or better yet, talk it over with people.
If they got come on,
bruh.
Tell me you got a problem.
We should
As an IT person, I don't know your computer's broke unless you tell me. I'm not going out searching every computer every 5 seconds.
So what you're
I've
saying
learned,
is
Bobby,
we should
that you guys
host a
don't actually
public
fix
forum.
Computers.
Well, I used to.
I've tried.
All right.
Just two. You graduated.
I graduated from that. All right, roaster review. What do you got, John? You go first.
I got the Magnificent Seven, the new version. I haven't seen the old
with
version.
Denzel?
Denzel.
Yeah, baby.
Denzel is actually a baller in this movie.
Yeah?
Like I've had issues with him in the past. Specifically Inside Man.
Okay.
But I think actually because I don't like Spike Lee. I think he's a jerk. Sorry, Spike Lee. Anyway, Denzel hits it out of the park this time. He's like
Chris Pratt's in it too, right?
Yes, and he's cool.
Yeah.
Like he's funny and like warm-hearted, and you're bummed when he. I'm not going to tell you.
Don't ruin anything. Watch it now.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm getting old.
When he lives happily
and
ever after.
If oldness means sensitivity, or if the movie was just this crazy. But I was shocked with how many people got shot. Like,
Oh yeah.
beginning to end, the entire movie, like they're just getting their gun off on everybody. Like they'll walk into town and somebody pulls a gun and like they shoot 12 people, and it's like, what the heck is going on, man? Like there's no town left to defend.
It's the Wild West, man. That's how it happened.
Yeah, it was
That's
crazy.
exactly how it happened.
Okay,
Every day.
all right. Well, in that
12
case,
people died.
I'm good.
In your town of 40 people, 12 people died every day.
Yeah. Other than that, like I don't think it would be a movie that would be like invented today. Like it seemed like kind of an old movie, or like
All right.
I don't know.
Out of 5 beans, how many
Out of
beans
5
would you give it?
beans. Okay, so you got to understand. Like I will watch a 3-bean movie more than once.
Sure. Okay.
So with that in mind, I will give it 3 beans.
3 beans. Okay. I will probably watch a 3-bean movie more than once too. Depending upon like what made it 3 beans. Like there's a comedic element to a movie that just makes me laugh all the time, but it's not like Godfather, like The Godfather.
Right.
You know, like Godfather's 5 beans because it's The Godfather.
Right.
Right. There's just so many crazy elements to that makes it 5 beans. But Major League 1 to me is like a 12-bean movie, but really is probably like a 3-bean movie.
Right.
But I will watch it every time it's on television and just for fun.
So
I'll watch
this
that
movie for me really is a 3-bean movie.
Okay.
But it's straightforward. It's pretty light. They get the right elements of peril and victory and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
3 beans.
All right. I got Luke Cage, a new Netflix original series, Marvel comic superhero Luke Cage, who is a bulletproof man in Harlem, kind of cleaning up the town a little bit. He was kind of forced into cleaning up the town. He didn't want to be noticed, but he kind of like was pulled into helping people based on his superpowers. And they got 1 season out. I'm like 11 episodes out of 13 done. I like it.
All right.
It's enjoyable. It's entertaining. There is an element of it that has that, like in superhero movies or in general in movies, like let's say the romantic comedy movie where like the unbelievable thing happens and all they really need to do is just talk about it and like to like clear up the air of the misconceptions that's going on. You're like, if
But
you just
nobody
sat down and
says-
said that's, and nobody says it, right?
Yeah.
Or like the unbelievable, like all you have to do is like say this to the cop and the cop's got to do this and then like things like the truth will come out and things will be okay. It has more of the element of like they'll go the more realistic route of what you would have to do like with the police officers or in the town and stuff in order to not be arrested or be arrested or like get the truth out there. Who's the bad guy? Who's not the bad guy? So it kind of has more of that realisticness to it that I enjoy.
Sure.
That's not just like this, okay, let's go into Fantasyland because
So-
no one ever just talks to the cop
Right.
anymore and be like, that's the bad guy who shot the other guy. Go arrest him. I saw it.
So the problems and the conflicts are more legitimate than just the falsified, manufactured.
They're not 100% legitimate,
Well, sure.
but they're a little bit more
better.
legitimate than the average movie.
All right.
That's why I
there's-
will give this a 3 1/4 bean.
3 1/4.
3 1/4 bean.
Is a quarter, how significant is a quarter of a bean?
You should be like 3 beans is I think you could take it or leave it.
Okay. Yeah,
But since
that's fair.
it's jumping on to the other side, it's like
Sure.
you should watch 1 episode.
It's on the
and see
5
what you
bean
like.
side.
Now Matt
of-
said
Now-
episode 1.
Now, I would
there's-
say the pilot
Yeah.
is a half bean.
Yeah,
Ooh,
pilot has some
savage.
Well,
I would say that it has a lot of realism.
it has
a
the
lot of
nudity-
realism that
nudity and
involves
swearing.
yeah.
sex
Well,
scenes,
Okay, so the
violence,
nudity definitely
strip clubs.
There's nudity in the first one and a little bit in the second episode. But
Oh, there's
then-
another strip club.
Yep. But they got stars over the nipples, which we've covered in this, in this podcast,
there
and
we go.
obviously that's
It's not
fine.
nudity.
Yeah,
Side
it's not
boob is
nudity,
fine.
Side boob is fine.
You wearing those right now?
We're
That was sarcasm
Yeah,
for
sarcasm,
our
people.
offendable listeners.
but the after episode 2, there's nothing.
Okay.
There's just a ton of there's swearing and blood and guts.
Right.
A lot of shoot 'em up.
Can of worms for a different episode. Do those things detract from the beans?
Yes.
Depends on the audience. So like I would give it. So I'd give it a Baker bean review of a half a bean. I would give it a John.
that's-
Like my review to you is a 3 1/4 bean.
3 1/4. All right.
Most of
I'll
my
consider
family
it.
wouldn't have given that a bean.
Yeah.
See,
Not even a half bean.
I'm
That's why I said
also
did I say
not
half
even,
a bean?
Not even a half.
Not
bean.
even a half a bean.
I gave
See,
it that begrudgingly.
But he's got like superpowers.
You
Like,
give
that's
a half a bean begrudgingly? Wow. That is strong.
There's a-
okay, well,
I
to
don't
be
spend
fair,
my beans freely.
all right. If I get Netflix, I'm watching Stranger Things first.
You should be watching Futurama.
And then I will do, maybe, because of the quarter of a bean, Luke Cage. 3 and a what? A half? Is Stranger Things? Okay. Well, one of our producers says that Stranger Things is 3.5 beans. I've heard fantastic things about it. I don't really know. I want to see it, but
Maybe I should. I don't know. Should I at least watch an episode or two?
I mean, it's kind of like,
With me, maybe.
oh, I see. So this was a review for John. Beans was 3.5.
What's my review? Do you think I can't take it? What is it about this show? I don't even know anything about the show.
It might just not be your type. Like it's kind of weird and thriller.
Oh, you think I'll be just like, this is stupid, like right away? It's intelligent, Bobby. Oh, so
It's an
obviously
intelligent
I would say,
show.
Obviously, I would say this is stupid.
It doesn't have sports.
You're
It doesn't
just
have.
not gonna
It
get
doesn't
it,
have
and-
superheroes.
Doing things with big things.
It has dialogue.
It doesn't have anybody bulletproof.
Yeah,
It's not a
I need
superhero.
bulletproof people.
Maybe there
got the guns. They ain't not hurting.
might be a
Seems like
plot.
a great way to end, actually.
All right. Well, it's been an hour. Season 2, episode 1.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yep, we're glad you listened, Matt.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Really
Thanks.
appreciate you covering what's not roastable, which is
Vegetables.
vegetables.
Yeah. Pretty much just stay away from the corn and peas and broccoli, and the rest is fine.
There's better
And
ways of
don't be
preparing
offended
them.
by it if we do.
yeah.
A pan,
It's your fault.
butter,
We might get
and bacon.
yeah.
Don't
a
roast
random
it.
broccoli tree.
Pan-sear it
on
with
there.
bacon.
Pan-sear your meat.
No, your vegetables.
Oh, your vegetables.
This is getting weird, man.
All right. This has been the Roasted Christian Podcast. I'm Bobby.
I'm John.
Thanks for listening.
You're welcome.